Hello and good evening, everybody, and I hope everyone is having a great evening and a great week so far, actually. And I thought that tonight would be a very good opportunity to finally tackle the world of the German hard rock heavy metal artists, the Scorpions. And believe it or not, back in the Snapchat days when we used to do this show on Snapchat, this was actually the very first artist I ever talked about. It was not this particular album, but I did talk about this artist in my very first episode ever. So I'm kind of going full circle here. I'm going right back to where I started, and I think that's kind of cool. But anyways, for this tonight's episode of Album Rant, I have chosen to focus on their, I believe, seventh studio release entitled Animal Magnetism, released in 1980. Now, why did I choose this one? Well, I thought it might be kind of interesting, seeing how this is often one that kind of falls between the cracks. I mean, people nowadays really love their very early stuff. Blackout and Love and First Sting always get all the praise. Even the more mainstream audiences prefer Savage Amusement and Crazy World. No one ever really seems to talk about Animal Magnetism, so I thought I would give it its due credit. But just to give you a heads up of how we got here, the Scorpions originated in the very early 70s, and I am not even going to attempt to pronounce some of these names, but the lead singer's name was Klaus, and the lead guitarist was Rudolf Schenker, and he was initially joined by his brother Michael Schenker, who is more well known for his work with UFO and his solo career. And they went through a variety of lineup changes all throughout the 70s, but they released 5 truly momentous albums called Lonesome Crow, Fly to the Rainbow, In Trance, Virgin Killer, and Taken by Force. And they were absolutely incredible. Definitely not very much in the mainstream. Definitely not. Okay, this stuff was absolutely crazy. It was very psychedelic, and it definitely felt like an acid trip. But still, I mean, to the hardcore metalheads, it is some of the greatest stuff out there. And I kind of have to agree with them, okay? But everything started to change in the year 1979. Their main lead guitarist, Uli John Roth, left the band, and he was replaced with, and I am sure I am mispronouncing this, so please don't even attempt to correct me. He was replaced by Matthias Jabs, and Michael Schenker actually came back for a very brief period of time, and they released Love Drive. And the main thrust behind this was there was a little album called Van Halen that was released the previous year, and I actually covered this on this show. And that album was very, very successful. So the Scorpions got a great idea. Hey, how about we modify our sound to kind of sound like Van Halen? But, honestly, I'm fine with that because I really like Van Halen, even though it was a change in direction of the sound for the band. So after the Love Drive album, which was very successful in 1979, that now brings us to the subject of tonight's review, Animal Magnetism, and there is the cover art. And apparently this cover art was not fully endorsed by all the band members. I think it was the bassist who had kind of a problem with the cover art. Feel free to fact check me on that, by the way. But still, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, it's interesting at least. But let's see what we have here on the back, okay? There's the back side right there, no pun intended. And let's see what we have here for a track list. By the way, that is the band right there. Klaus has been with them ever since the beginning. So has Rudolph. Matthias joined the previous album on Love Drive. So this is his second album with the band. Francis has been with them ever since the Fly of the Rainbow album. And Herman joined 2 albums ago on Taken by Force. But it starts out with Make It Real, and it's a pretty good opener, but something about it didn't quite sit right with me. It sounded kind of flat. But, I mean, you could definitely do worse, but Make It Real is a decent opener, but it doesn't quite have the hook that I expected. I mean, let's look at some of the previous albums. I mean, Lonesome Crow began with I'm Going Mad, which was great. Fly the Rainbow began with Speedy's Coming. We had Dark Lady, Picture Life, Steam Rock Fever, Loving You Sunday Morning. Those are all great, great openers, and I don't think Make It Real really quite lived up to it, but it's okay. Then we move to the second track called Don't Make No Promises Your Body Can't Keep. And I'm just going to say right away, that is a ridiculous title. Pretty on the nose if you come to think about it, actually. But yeah, on the previous album, Love Drive, there was another song called Another Piece of Meat, and this song is definitely trying to bank off the success of that, and I don't think it's quite as good. Then we have Hold Me Tight, which is a little bit slower. Don't Make No Promises Your Body Can't Keep is very, very fast and sleazy to say the least. But Hold Me Tight is a lot more slower, but I mean, it kind of does a good job, but it's not quite my favorite song, but it's okay. 20th Century Man is a little bit more upbeat, and again, it's not bad, but it's not some of their best material. And then side one concludes with Lady Starlight, which is a ballad. Now, the Scorpions often have ballads on their albums. Some of them work very well. Some of them don't work so well. Lady Starlight works okay. Not as good as some of their other ballads, but I would definitely rather listen to this than Believe in Love or Rhythm of Love or Send Me an Angel. I would definitely rather listen to it than that. Fun fact about Lady Starlight, that is the one and only Scorpions song from what I've read that uses orchestration. So there's that at least. So then we come to side two. We come to Falling in Love, which is another pretty up-tempo rocker. And it's okay. Once again, it's okay. Then we have Only a Man, which starts out with Klaus singing solo, no backup or anything, and he goes on for like 13 seconds or so. I'm not a huge fan of that intro, but once the band starts kicking in, it's not a bad track. It's again pretty up-tempo, pretty upbeat. It's pretty reminiscent to a lot of the songs that came before it, so I'm guessing you're sensing a pattern here by this point. So far, I think this album is pretty bland and pretty forgettable. And if the album had ended after track 7, I would probably not even be talking about it. But this is the thing. Track 8, track 3 on side 2, The Zoo, is where the album really, really redeems itself. I absolutely love that song. It has a killer guitar intro, and it just really kind of sets the stage, and the Scorpions really redeem themselves here. They're kind of like, yeah, I know we didn't do very well on our previous 7 tracks, but this is where we mean it. We're serious now, and they absolutely do pull it off. But after that guitar intro, we have a nice little rhythm, and this thing is very dark and very gloomy. The chorus kind of picks back up, then it goes back into that rhythm, that very slow, very dooming rhythm. And I think this song is about their trip to 42nd Street in New York, from what I understand. I think it is, but still. The Zoo is an absolute classic, and The Zoo is one of the greatest Scorpions songs ever. Now, I know what you must be saying. Sure, the Scorpions have one really great song on this entire album. So what? Well, they actually have 2 very good songs, because we now have the title track at the very end. And I gotta be honest, I think that the title track is my favorite song from this entire album. This thing is dark and it's gothic. It's still very sleazy, but it pulls it off so much better. Animal Magnetism, the title track, is a whole lot more like their early stuff. That very psychedelic and very acid trippy music. And I love everything about the title track. It is dark, it is very, very slow, but doomy at the same time, and I think the title track is severely underrated. Yes, the zoo gets the praise that it deserves, but I think it's the title track that really pulls it off, and it closes the album very, very well with a nice little sadistic laugh. Kind of sounds like that. Maybe not really, but I did my best. But anyways, this is a very, very interesting album because, as I said, most of it isn't quite up to par with what this band is capable of, but the last two tracks are the Scorpions at their very best. So for that, I do recommend this album. Could it have been better? Yes, it absolutely could have. But is it bad? No. Even at its worst, this is still better than anything off Savage Amusement. I'm going to say that right now. And so I do recommend picking this one up. There are better Scorpions albums out there. I will be talking about them, but this is definitely worth a listen if it's just for those last two songs, The Zoo and Animal Magnetism. So anyways, that is going to conclude the review of Animal Magnetism by the Scorpions. And yes, I do recommend this. So anyways, for the past couple of episodes, I've been talking about my favorite albums. Next time, I thought it might be kind of a fun idea to talk about some of my favorite songs from a particular artist. So that's that. And until then, have a very pleasant evening.